Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Simon Gatto, CSO of SoftComply, and today I'll be walking you through a high-level overview of SoftComply's document management tool for Confluence. For those of you that may be using Confluence already, we know it's an excellent tool for creating and collaborating on just about any type of documentation. When it comes to compliance, however, there are a number of guardrails and restrictions that we need to put in place to ensure that your docs are meeting the regulations that you may have to adhere to. So we built Document Manager directly in Confluence, so you wouldn't have to give up that ease of use and collaboration, but still be able to manage your controlled documents effectively and easily where your organization is already working every day. When it comes to compliant document management systems, there's typically a number of requirements that need to be met. So things like electronic signatures, version management, and audit trails. But beyond that, what users really need is seamless integration across all the teams in their organizations for their documentation strategy to really be successful. So we're going to touch on each of these areas as we walk through the demo today. Let's start with a brief explanation of the file structure we use and how easy it is to navigate your controlled documents once the tool is in place. So the first thing that happens once the app's been installed is the creation of three specific spaces in your Confluence instance to handle draft, released, and obsoleted content. You can control who has access to pages at different stages in your document lifecycle this way. Typically, only a select group of users is going to have access to the draft and the obsoleted spaces, while the general user population will normally have only visibility to the latest version of your released documents. And this really helps condense the number of different spaces in Confluence that you have to manage as far as user access and visibility. From this point, all your controlled documents will be managed within the app using our File Explorer system of folders and subfolders, which are very similar to Windows or Mac, and making it really easy to navigate and manage where all your docs are going to live. Let's take a look at creating a controlled document, which will be done through the Document Manager interface using the Create Document button. From here, you can fill out some preliminary information about the document, like the title, the type of document for filtering reasons. You can also use a pre-created template for your pages if you want, or you can leave that blank and just start with a blank page and go ahead and use a template. This is also where you can indicate where you want the doc to live in your folder structure, as well as where you want to start the versioning from. So the versioning might not start at 1. It may start at a higher number. If you are bringing documents in from another system, you might want to start at 2 or 3, but you can also start it at 1. We'll go ahead and create the document. So we can now see the page that we've created as well as the status of the page, which is draft. So every new page will automatically go into the draft state. And now we can start adding content to the page, just as if we would be editing any normal Confluence document. Go ahead and open that up. I'll go ahead and add some content to this page and save that. Now, before we move on from here, something that I am going to point out that's going to be added typically to every template that you create when you're setting up control documents, and that's our change history table macro. This macro is going to allow you to see an ongoing history of the page as it evolves through different versions and can be exported to Word, PDF, and it's also compatible with the Scroll Exporter app from K15T. Right now, Document Manager is currently the only document management app for Confluence Cloud that provides this type of functionality, and it's something that the regulatory auditors is always going to be looking for. Also note the controlled document link in the byline up here, and this is just a way of being able to identify all your controlled documents, allow you to easily bring up some basic versioning information about the page, as well as a nice, easy way to get back to the document management interface. So now we've added the necessary content that we want to this page, and the next step is going to be to start routing this page through the approval process, which is done through what we call an activity. And this is triggered by clicking the Route Document button. So in the case of Document Manager, an activity is like a container that will attach all the approval workflows of the page, as well as any related tasks that are going to be part of this activity based on the lifecycle that we're going to select for this page. And keep in mind, you can attach an activity to a single page, or you can create an activity and add multiple pages to that one activity if you want. So you can do a one-to-one, or you can actually add multiple pages to a single activity. In most cases, people will usually add a single activity to a page, but if you have a group of documents that you want to be able to move through a workflow, you can do that with a single activity as well. It really makes it much more efficient. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and just assign this activity to a single page just to make it easy. It automatically will grab the name of your document that we put in. We can go ahead and select the lifecycle to go with it. Now, The life cycles that are available, there's a number of them available out of the box, but you can also create and customize your own workflows if you want. So these are just some of the ones that are available, but you can go in and they're fully customizable if you want to build your own. I'm going to go ahead and click the review and approve. And this one is often used for the majority of records within an organization, mostly because it's nice and simple, very basic approval process, but it's also fully compliant with FDA and 1345 requirements. It'll automatically assign the owner because I created the page. You can add some additional descriptive information if you want, and then we'll go ahead and we'll create this activity. The activity has been created, and we can actually start digging into some of the information in the activity itself, including any tasks that are associated with this activity. So we've got some review and approval activities. You can see which documents are part of this activity. In this case, again, it's just one. If you did want to add additional documents, you could do that from here as well. We can see a visual representation of this specific workflow. Again, this one's nice and basic, but if you have a more complex workflow that you need to build for your pages, you can create and customize those as well. And there's also an audit trail that's going to give you a look at anything that's been created or anything that's happened within this activity throughout its life cycle. And again, this is for audit purposes, so you can always see if something's been changed or modified, you'll be able to tell that's happened through this audit trail. To begin the approval process, we need to launch this activity. But before we can do that, of course, we're going to need some reviewers and some approvers to have a look at this document. So I can go into my assignees here, and I can select one, or I can add multiple reviewers to this document. For the sake of ease, I'm going to add myself to as a reviewer. In most cases, of course, this would be a different person. I'm going to add myself there. As I mentioned, if you wanted to have multiple people review the document, you can add them here as well. These people will all be notified by email when they get to be assigned within one of your activities as well. In the approval, I'm going to add myself as well. Again, in most cases, you're often going to have a group of reviewers and you may have different people that are actually approving the document. So now that we have our tasks assigned, we can put the activity into action by clicking the launch button. And once it's launched, this newly created activity is going to appear in the dashboard along with all the activities that this user may have created. So your reviewer is going to be notified about their assignment to this task. So they need to go in and review it. So they can go in, have a look at the document you've created. Assuming they're happy with it, they can come back into view their tasks within the dashboard to review and approve this page. So any tasks that are assigned to a user are going to show up in the Document Manager dashboard under their assigned activities. But the user will also be able to see this in their For You page within Confluence. So any tasks that have been assigned to me are also going to be visible from within here. So go back into our dashboard, back into the activity that was assigned. So I'm going to go through and approve the first review step for the activity. You should notice that there's some mandatory completion information here. This is to allow your users to be able to provide some additional context. For standard tasks, this is mandatory. So I have my completion info. You'll notice this checkbox appear, so I can go ahead and confirm. Confirm. We can see now that the review task has disappeared because it's moved to the bottom because it has been done. It's been reviewed. At this point now, it's going to move to the next step in the activity, which is the actual final approval for this documentation. So in this case, again, there's some completion info. It's optional for your approvals. Assuming everything in the document looks fine, I can go ahead and give it the final approval. Now in this case, you'll notice this pop-up. This is where our digital signature feature kicks in. So we do use a TOTP to allow that digital signature, which meets FDA compliance. I'll go ahead and add my digital token, complete this approval process. And once that's done, you see that all of the tasks that are part of this activity have been done. The review is complete, the approval is complete. The only thing left is to actually release this document out so that it will be moved into the released state. Once that's done, this document will now show up as a released document. It will now automatically be moved into our released space as well. So we're going to go and open up the document. Once the document's open, we can see now the change history table is showing us that it has been released, gives us some of the information about the release. And you'll also notice that the edit button is no longer here. So this page has now been locked down in our release state. So you don't have to worry about moving pages yourself. It's going to automatically move based on the workflow once it's actually gone from draft to released. Now, if the page needs to be updated in the future, which is pretty common, we handle this a little differently in order to ensure the previous versions of a page are not modified. And this is for audit reasons, as the native Confluence page history can sometimes break macros and previous Confluence versions can't be exported to PDF. We go back into the dashboard. If you do need to make changes to a page later on, you'll do this by going to the dashboard and using the Create New Version button on the top right. So this creates a copy of the previous version of the page, but of course it increments the version and it creates it in a draft state. So the review and approval process can then be repeated for this new version. And moving forward, any new versions of this page will become draft until they're released. And once the released versions will then be obsoleted. You can see an example of this in one of our documents that we created. So here you can see the multiple different versions of the page. The previous versions have been obsoleted. We have one of these in the draft state, and then we have the actual released version. And of course, once version 5 gets released, version 4 would be obsoleted and so on. And they'll go through the process as many times as you need. Hope this overview has been informative and you've got a much better understanding of how you can use this tool to better manage your controlled documents right inside of Confluence. You can try it yourself directly from the Atlassian Marketplace. And if you'd like to set up some time with us for a more detailed one-on-one session, come and visit us at softcomply.com. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great day.